What is the difference between a legal separation and a divorce? I'm John Henderson with HH Law, and I want to help you understand the difference between separation and divorce. It's pretty clear that a separation is some sort of living apart from each other, and a divorce is a final act that you are no longer a husband and wife. That much is true. But the terms are a little bit different and can mesh together a little bit, and they also are different in different states. So I want to remind you that this is South Carolina specific law, but the same law applies in a lot of other states. And so it should be good information for lots and lots of people who live in states and jurisdictions similar to South Carolina. So let's take divorce. What is divorce? Divorce happens when somebody files for divorce. There's typically a temporary hearing to determine what's going to happen on a temporary basis. Then there's an opportunity to negotiate, hopefully arrive at a settlement, and then a final divorce decree. That's the general process that goes on with divorce. So when we're talking about a legal separation in the state of South Carolina, we're talking about that time period that you have to be separated during a divorce. Now, what I just described is really what happens during a no-fault divorce. Nobody's at fault for the divorce. It's what we would think about as an irreconcilable differences. People have grown apart. They no longer want to be married to each other. And so you commence a divorce action and follow this path. In South Carolina, you have to be separated for 1 year, 365 days before you get your final divorce decree. During that time, you can do a lot of fighting about different issues. You can try to figure out what's going to go on permanently with the kids. You can have some temporary orders in there. There's a lot of going on dealing with what's a marital asset, what's a non-marital asset, what's going on with property and so forth. Who's paying what bills, who's assuming what debt. All those issues are getting worked out during that 1 year. And you can really get an agreement on all those things prior to the 1 year. But that separation period is what we're talking about here in South Carolina, is a legal separation, that period of time that you have to be separated in a no-fault divorce. In other states, however, there's actually such a thing as a legal separation. Some states have it set up so that you can be separated and live that way, still married, still technically married. You might still owe on each other's debts. You might still own business assets together. You might, have an arrangement with the children going back and forth, a 50-50 custody arrangement, something like that. But you can still be married, just legally separated. And what happens there is an order in place by a judge, and you live by the terms of whatever that agreement was. Most often, that's a negotiated agreement between the two parties trying to figure it out. So that's a little bit of a difference in what we think about as like a legal separation in South Carolina, is that time frame. And in other states, there's actually a more technical, real term of a legal separation that is a legally binding period of time. Here, it's really a terminology that we use to define that period where you are separated prior to divorce. For that reason, there are a lot of little things that go into that separation. What is going on during that period? I mentioned them a few minutes ago, some of these issues that are being hashed out. But one of the big things that happens right when people filed for divorce, if it's a no-fault divorce, you have to have this separation for 365 days. But really, right out of the gate, you've got to have a temporary order in place. And so what happens is judges need to make sure that we know who's taking care of the kids, what the custody is going to be on a temporary basis, visitation on a temporary basis, who's paying for them, and so forth. And then we need to know what's happening with the main assets. Where are the bills in all of this? Who's paying the light bill at the marital home? Who's paying the mortgage payment? Who's paying car payments? Who's paying insurance? All of these different things. So there's a temporary hearing set up in most instances right out of the gate. And so that is how the husband and wife are going to exist during that 1 year separation period. Those are the rules in place moving forward until you get a final settlement agreement. It could be that you file for divorce. A month later, you have your temporary hearing. This is the order that's in place. And then that could be a month later you have a final settlement, or it could be 10 months later you have a final settlement agreement that's made in order to the court. But during that period of time where it's ill-defined, where you have not determined a final settlement agreement of the assets of the marriage, what's marital, what's non-marital, what's going to go on permanently with the kids, where are they going to go to school, who's going to make decisions about their health care, who's going to make decisions about their education, all of these a sundry of different issues that you are going to battle through over that year, you have this temporary order in place that dictates what's going on during that separation period. And as I said, in different states have different rules, particularly regarding this separation situation. And so if you are in the state of South Carolina, we encourage you to use this information. Call our office if you have follow-up information. Ask us questions. Engage us. Hire us to represent you if you need our help if you are in the state of South Carolina. If you are outside of South Carolina, I encourage you to locate a lawyer in your local jurisdiction, somebody who's going to be able to tell you the difference between getting a separation and getting a divorce, how those play together with each other, because this particular issue varies from state to state greatly. I'm John Henderson. This is HH Law.